context of this quite nicely. So we've been chatting about doing some kind of graduation event. We're nearly at the end of the program. So what we're thinking is on the 25th of November. It would be really good to know for everyone what your weeks look like. So that isn't a Wednesday or a Saturday, it's a Monday night, about 3 weeks' time. Doing a slightly different format than what we normally do, inviting down a bunch of potential employers who might be looking at taking on juniors and interns for anyone that's looking for a tech role post-program, as well as you can bring along your family and friends, and we'll have a little bit of a party, we'll have a graduation, get a certificate, have some cupcakes, have like a nice fun evening with that opportunity for you to demo some of your work. So we aren't thinking at this point that you'll have to get up on stage and demo anything. I think about half of this room wouldn't come otherwise. But we will have like a little table for you to bring your devices and show some of your work if you want to, as well as having a little bit of bio about you guys in the program, sort of speed up some of those networking opportunities without having to present in front of a large group of people. The reason we're looking at it on Monday is we're trying to coordinate things within BHP to get some of the people who funded the program to be here. And there's a small potential that Diane is going to be coming down from Singapore, who might be able to be there, the CTO of BHP. So that's why we're looking at that Monday. But it would be great if you can pop it in your diaries, and if anyone can't make that date, you can let me know in the next couple of days or so as we kind of pull things together. And if anyone has any ideas or suggestions of things that they would like to do at that event or people that they want to invite, let me know as well as we're getting that together. So with that context, we have two wonderful presentations happening today. So Michelle, I'm sure most of you would have seen Michelle around about places. Super incredible advocate for everything with women in tech at every event. And part of all of the committees, basically. So we're going to have a little chat about one of the things Michelle's really good at is being active on all of the social media platforms. Talking a little bit about LinkedIn tips and how we can stay ahead and stay connected. And then I've got Jodie and Brian from Robert Walters, who are in recruitment, to give some tips on resume writing and recruiting, interviewing, all those kinds of things. And they've got some little leaflets and stuff. And then next week, next Wednesday, I've got Josh coming in to take photos of anyone else's pictures. So that will be like a one-on-one, coming to grab you, take you to a different room, get your picture taken, like 10 to 15 minutes per person, swap back out to the next person. It's going to be organised chaos. But Josh is great, and hopefully we'll get everyone keep going until we're happy with our pictures. Cool. We good? Awesome. So, over to Michelle.
Hey everyone. I do also have a small potential opportunity. Kate will be speaking at our ACS Diversity Dinner on the 28th of November. I am selling tables directly to organisations, and I'm saying to them, buy a table of 8 and give me half those seats back, and I will give those seats to women that cannot afford a seat at the table. And I will give them to students, to junior developers, or to role models. And they can kind of say whether they want students, junior developers, or role models. So potentially there will be some free seats at the dinner that people can ask for. And if you would like to come along, you should let Kate know, and she will put you on a list. And then if I have those seats, I will offer them to you. I have to give preference to ACS members. However, I suspect that the ACS members will all be the students category, not the junior dev category. And so if a lot of people say they want junior devs, then you have a good chance of getting a free seat, and you would get to see Kate speak, which is always awesome. It's called the Diversity Dinner. And so there were two speakers, Kate and Rima, who works at VGW. She's a data scientist type, and she's really funny and interesting and smart. And they just speak for 15 minutes in between courses. So you have starters, then one of them, and then main course, then the other one, and then desserts. And there's lots of other fun stuff, like we do selfie competitions and just networking with all the businesses that are in the room. And it's super, super fun. And yeah, it's, it's just an excuse for a party.
What does ACS stand for?
Australian Computer Society. Cool. Okay, that's that. Onwards. So this on LinkedIn because I was, when Microsoft bought LinkedIn, before that was, not related to us at all, but I always loved LinkedIn. I loved it from the start. And so once we bought it, they started releasing the results of how well Microsoft members were using it. And I was #1 in the world. And this is so rare because we're in Perth, which is this tiny little city on the edge of the world. And there are all these super famous American people in Microsoft that, have books out and have 20,000 followers on social media. And so I couldn't really understand how I, from Perth, was managing to have so much influence. However, LinkedIn is a really cool tool for that, in that it doesn't matter if you have 1 follower or 10 followers or 100,000 followers. It's not you, it's the power of your network. So if your 1 follower had, 1 million followers themselves and they loved your stuff and always liked it, then your stuff would get in front of 1 million people, even though they aren't connected to you. So it's not all on you. It's the power of community, which we love, don't we? Okay. I first kind of realized how good it was when I was at the WIETA dinner a few years ago. So it's a big gala dinner that gives awards for different IT companies within Perth and individuals doing good things. And I hate that kind of thing. Like, I'm super shy at a big networking function, but I know that it is my duty to go around and shake hands and kiss babies. Well, not generally babies, old men, I suppose, is the thing. And I don't want to go up to strangers and come up with things to say. It's really hard. And it's the same in like any networking situation that you're in, where they say go out and, meet the businesses that you're going to be part of. It's really hard to think, what can I say to them in those few minutes that will be impressive enough that they will remember me and not instantly dismiss me? And so I had gone early and I was standing at the edge of the room scoping it out, and I saw someone that I knew, and I thought, well, I will go over and say hello to him, and he's talking to someone else and he'll introduce me to that other person, and that will be a nice, easy way to break into the crowd. So I went over and said, hey. And he said, oh, hey, Michelle, do you know blah, blah? He's the CTO of the Department of Big Government Things. And I immediately started panicking and feeling a bit faint, because he was a really important CTO executive of government, which I have no contacts in. And, I needed to say something in those few seconds that was really impressive, and my mind was completely blank, and I was starting to see that red fuzz in front of my eyes, and I wondered if I should just, immediately say I need to go to the toilet and run off. But he looked at me and went, oh, you're Michelle Sandford. I follow you on LinkedIn. I love your articles. and I just thought, this is so cool. This guy already knows me. I don't have to prove anything to him. And without even opening my mouth, I have already established credibility. He's already a fan. He's already a friend. And all the hard work was done. And we can go straight to the part where we're just laughing and joking and acting like friends. And I thought, social media is such a powerful tool for the introvert, or indeed anyone. It means you can do that stuff. You can establish those relationships in advance of ever having to meet people. And then when you meet them, it's all plain sailing, hopefully. So I'm going to show you how to do those things for yourself. So this is a screenshot from LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn, although it's not currently looking exactly like this because I try to change it up quite often. But this is what you can focus on first of all. So on your link, how many of you got LinkedIn profiles? Oh, good. So normally that banner at the top is just a default blue, and most people just leave it as a default blue. That's your first opportunity to say something about yourself without you meeting someone in person. You can change that to a picture that gives more of an impression as to who you are. And so I've just put a kind of digital banner up there, and I've put some logos and things in there which say a little bit about who I am there. But there are some different examples we'll see as we go on. My friend Jonathan, he has a kind of blackboard in the background there, and on the blackboard it's got all these scientific symbols written all over it. And what that says to anyone looking at it is this guy is a teacher into technology. And so he was a teacher, and he is into technology, and he's doing stuff for Microsoft. So it kind of, in a picture, sums up the person that he is, and that can be very impactful. Personal tagline. So underneath your name, a lot of people just put their current job title in there. I want to stress that you are more than your current job title. And in fact, I am nothing like my current job title. And so therefore, there is no need at all to waste that tagline there by putting your job title in. Put in what you want to be or what you want to be seen as. So if it is junior developer, but you don't feel like you're a junior developer yet, there's no need to wait. You can still put junior developer in there because that is what you are seeking the job in. If you really can't think how to describe yourself apart from your job title, then you could put a quote in there, something that sums up your outlook on life. I used to have change the world or go home in there, because that was a kind of Microsoft slogan, and it was one that I really believed in. Okay. The next bit is your profile. So you see how there's only 3 lines showing there. If you click on the show more, it will show like a whole load of other stuff in there. But those 3 lines are the ones that are visible by default. So those 3 lines have to be the most impactful things, the best things you can think about yourself, the things that you wish other people would say when introducing you to someone. And of course, you feel like you could never say those things about yourself because it's super embarrassing. But in fact, here you don't have to say it out loud, you're writing it down. So if you can't think of those things, you could ask your friend, you could ask someone that knows you really well, what are the things that I've done that are worth calling out, and put them in those top 3 lines. I've also, you see underneath it's got a whole bunch of pictures. Those are links to videos. So I have quite a lot of recordings of things like this, where I'm teaching people stuff, or I'm talking at a conference, or whatever, and I've put those all in there. If you hadn't done that, because like, why would you? You could still, you could still make those recordings of yourself at home. You could record yourself teaching something in just like a 5-minute video, something you've learned at SheCodes, and or maybe like a little video that's advice to future SheCodes mentees. And then you could put that link in there. And what that does is it adds a little splash of color to your profile, so it's not really boring. It gives people insight into you and your personality and what you're like, and they can better imagine what it would be like to work with you in the workplace. If you are teaching something, even a 5-minute video or 5 minutes advice to future SheCodes attendees, it will show something of yourself, of your personality, of who you are, of how you are, and give them a better view. So they're not just judging on the black and white Times New Roman CV that 200 other applicants have also put on the desk of the hiring manager. Yeah. So then thoughts. When I first joined LinkedIn, you could only write articles if you were what they classed as an influencer. And so this meant there was a selected number of people that were invited to write articles. After a few years, they opened it up and anyone can write articles now, which is really an encouragement to use it as a blogging platform. And it's very easy. You can, you just click on write article and you can add pictures and you can write text as much as you like. There's no limitations, and get those ideas out there. That as well gives people some insight into who you are, what you stand for, what you value, what you believe in, what you think is important, or what you have to teach, what you have to share. When you write your first article, of course you are super nervous and thinking everyone's going to condemn me and they're going to say this is rubbish and there's going to be all sorts of bad comments on it. That is not generally the case on LinkedIn. It's a business community, and so people are very respectful of each other. And even where I have one time seen someone being disrespectful, other community members will then shut that person down, because LinkedIn is not the platform for trolling people. So you can write what you want and not feel any condemnation. Try to write nice stuff though. Don't be writing scandalous stuff where you're condemning other people. Also, when you first write your first article, you and your mum will be the only ones that read it. So no need to fear that everyone is going to say it's terrible. And then as more people start to read them, well, they're reading them because they know you and they like you. And so the feedback is likely to be good. So don't worry about getting stuff perfect. Just write some stuff and it will add some insight into who you are. Where I put be active, be known. If you never touch your LinkedIn, if you just load all your stuff up as if it's a CV and then never touch it again, no one else will see that either. Because what brings your profile to the top of people's feeds is activity. So you need to be liking people's posts, reading articles, sharing articles, posting stuff yourself in order for your name to be in people's timelines. And if your name is in people's timelines, when you are interviewing with them, they will recognize your name and they will recognize your face already. Hopefully they will link you to some positive thoughts and feelings because they have seen you sharing interesting articles and adding useful stuff to the community. And so therefore they are more likely to raise your name in the list because they know it and there is already some credibility attached to it. So without even meeting them in person yet, you are already establishing some credibility. So here's some comparative examples. You can see the first one. He hasn't even bothered to put a picture on and he has that default banner. I will not accept a LinkedIn invitation from someone who has no picture. I do not accept ghosts. I want to know who I'm dealing with. I don't need to have met them in person, but I do need to think this is a real person. And also that they've made some effort to put it in. What should be in for your photo though is a clear enough picture that when you go to an interview, the hiring manager will be able to recognize you in the waiting room, and they won't have the embarrassment of having to say, "Are you Sarah?" "Oh, are you Sarah?" "Oh, are you Sarah?" Because you think you're the one that's nervous, but hiring managers are people too, and they are also nervous about embarrassing themselves. So make it super easy for them to recognize who you are. Anto, she works with me. What she's put as her background picture is that's the Microsoft campus in Redmond. And what that says when you look at that is there is Anto, and she is backed by the might of Microsoft. She has ultimate credibility at her back. And she's put a really good description there about what she cares about. What Stephen's put in the middle there is that he's speaking at a conference. This also adds credibility to him. It says he's an expert in his field. And you can, even as junior developers, even as where you are exactly now, you can submit to conferences like DDD, and people are interested in hearing your perspective as junior developers, as students on the journey. My talk at DDD this year was on 100 Days of Code and learning Python, and it was all like really beginner stuff. But people do want to see that. They want to learn from people who are just one step ahead of where they are. So don't think you don't have anything to offer. You absolutely can do that. Show your work. So the reason I said don't put your job title underneath your name is because there is a whole section on employment history, and there you have your current job title, your current company, and your previous companies and your previous job titles. And you can put them in there, and you can put in there what you did within the scope of that job. You can also attach articles, pictures, videos, other stuff that sort of makes it look more interesting. The more you put in there, the more insight you are giving into who you are and the kind of stuff you can do. So presentations, if you built a presentation for something that you're very proud of, I mean, obviously you need to take out any customer data and stuff like that, but you can post those things up there and they can see the quality of your work. But there's loads more stuff, like maybe you haven't had any work before, maybe you were students and now you're looking for your first job, but there is other stuff you could have done. Volunteering experience here, I've got, the kids' church team leader. Kids' church, I mean, this is Australia. People are not very religious in this country, I noticed. But nevertheless, when they see that I was a team leader in kids' church, they are thinking, that is a really good person. So those fools. So, people frame an association from the stuff that you have done. Volunteering with Soroptimist International. I call those my posh old ladies because they're generally like old ladies who are retired but come from money, and they're doing, having bake sales and stuff like that. But it was really nice, like helping them with running Bunnings sausage sizzles and stuff like that. And all the money that they raised went to help fund women's education. Here in Australia, in regional areas, or like in Bali and stuff like that. So it was a really nice thing to be part of. Committee member for WIETA. So there's a lot of things that require people to help keep them running, like all the She Codes mentors, they're all volunteering their time and doing it for nothing more than love of community. Doing those things and putting them on there is as good as job experience if you haven't had any job experience. And if you have had work experience, it's still better than people who only have work experience, because you show that you care about giving back into the community and you can do a lot of stuff more than the scope of a standard job. Also, qualifications. There's a lot of online qualifications that you can do for free, and you can add those to your profile as well. And what's over there? Oh, that's education, is it? I do not have my glasses on. But yeah, you see my point. Like, add everything in, add more stuff in, and think about what those things say about you. My favorite thing on LinkedIn is recommendations, which are essentially references. Now, on your CV, you traditionally would put 2 references at the bottom of your CV, and they would be, a name, the job title and work thing, and their phone number or email address. But people calling those names, those numbers, it's pretty hard to know for sure whether they are really calling those exact people. Like, I could put my mum's phone number down there and say that she's the president of IBM. And then when they call, like, are you the president of IBM? And she's like, yeah, that's what I am. Yep, exactly. Michelle is a really good girl. I mean, it's hard for people to trace that reference. Whereas on LinkedIn, I don't know, I think I have more than 30 recommendations on there now, and those span my career from when LinkedIn started. So I have ones from when I was working in IBM and I had a bunch of help desk people working for me, and they were super young. And when you read their recommendations, they are so cute because they're just saying, oh, Michelle is the best manager we ever had. and their language, because it's from Czech Republic, is all really broken, but it's really cute. And then you see other ones from, higher up execs, which are, more pretentious sounding, shall we say. But there's a real variety when you read each of the things, but you can see common themes through there. You can read what kind of person I am from reading those recommendations, and you can see who those people are. And if you doubt that they are real people or that the recommendations are real, you can click on them and look at their profile and see who has recommended them and see what their career path was. And people do make fake profiles on LinkedIn, absolutely, but they don't put that much effort into making sure the entire history is there and the entire flow through and the entire link from recommendation to recommendation. So it's not impossible to do, and I have seen it done pretty well and for it to fool people, but generally people will trust these recommendations, especially if you've got 30. And yeah, then by reading that, they really know who I am. How long have I talked for? Has it been too long? Do I need to hurry up? I'm going to speed up a bit because I feel like I'm talking really a lot. Make meaningful connections. A lot of people tell me they only connect to people who they know. This is no good. If you only collect to people that you know, then you are not really using the functionality of LinkedIn. The purpose is to leverage your network. The purpose is to get links to people at places where you do want to work. So, you can, like I will often reach out to a whole bunch of people I do not know at Google or at AWS and say, I want to, expand connections outside of my Microsoft network. I'm future-proofing myself. I'm not going to be at Microsoft forever. And so, yeah, you want to form those connections and you want to make those friends early. You don't want to be reaching out to people at the time when you are desperate to get the job, because they will smell that desperation on you, even in an online sense. So, build up your network early and let them see who you are so that they will already be aware of you. And it's pretty easy to get them to connect to you. Tell them why you want to connect to them. I say I want to connect to people outside of my Microsoft network, and they say, fair enough. Or I might say, I met you at an event last month, and they'll say, fair enough. Or might say, I'm coming to a conference, I'm going to see you next month. And they're like, okay, good, let's connect. So just give them a reason. Don't leave it. Don't just click the connect button. Put the thing in there that says why, what's in it for them, what's in it for you. They want to be sure they're not going to be sold to, really, or that you're not going to ask them for a job straight away in the first connection. When I said write articles, and probably some of you thought, what on earth would I write about? Everyone knows something. I wrote about how do you get a job at Microsoft, because I had just gotten a job at Microsoft, and a lot of people want to read that. But there are things you can do just sharing other people's stuff. So you should do 3 little things each day. You should like some posts, but like some posts related to stuff that you want to be linked to. So if you want a job as a junior developer, like some posts about development, or like some posts from companies that hire developers, or something that is linked to what you are looking at, so that your name is linked to that topic. I was learning about DevOps. I don't know a great deal about DevOps, but I was learning about it. I was reading articles, reading books, reading audio books, stuff like that. And I wrote what I learned, or I shared the articles that I thought were good. And I did that over the course of a month, just sharing, various articles and books and things that I had read about DevOps and saying, this is good because of this is what I learned here. And at the end of that month, Redify asked me to speak on DevOps at one of their events. So a month worth of just learning stuff and sharing stuff, you are suddenly considered an expert in the field, or enough of an expert in the field to talk about it at an event. And certainly I had learned enough to share something for 20 minutes. This one's my favorite one. Daphne here, she shared an article from, I don't know, from one of the news things, Seven West or whatever, saying, well, it wouldn't have been Seven West, it would have been someone over east, saying that Sydney had been completely shut down and no one was able to work because of the public transport strike. And she shared that article saying, isn't it weird that in this day and age where pretty much everyone has an internet connection at home and they have laptops, and nowhere near every single role requires you to be there physically in person, the entire city was brought to its knees by public transport strikes. If we were more free with our workforce and allowed them to be more flexible and work from home if they needed to, then all of the nurses and doctors and teachers that needed to physically be there could have got there on the existing infrastructure. But instead, we are forcing everyone to not be as productive as they could be. And she wanted to share that because her role was a sort of digital transformation leader. But she's taking an article that's completely unrelated to digital transformation and putting that spin on it, which is really clever, I think. Here's some other examples. Our CEO, when he wrote his book, he gave us all a book. And so I shared a picture of the book and said, this is what we got today, and it's really cool for these reasons. And that got 13.5 thousand views. The second one, I went to speak at one of the universities at a Google conference, and I forgot to take a picture of myself at a Google conference, which was so scandalous. So instead, I just took a picture of myself back at the office and said, I spoke at a Google conference today. And it doesn't even matter to people that I didn't have the picture of myself at the Google conference. It's still got 19,000 views. This one is really my favorite one, Jason holding his baby. I came into work one morning and he's there on the phone holding this baby in his arm, like not smiling or anything, not posing underneath the Microsoft sign. And I snapped that picture of him and said, I think it's really great that if people need to bring their babies to work, they can bring their babies to work. And 38,000 views. He took a picture later of him posing with the baby, and it didn't get nearly anywhere near as many views because people don't want to see you posing with a baby. They want to see reality. They want to see you frowning because a customer is shouting at you, and yet you're still having to hold your baby. That's real life. That's what people want. I did have one comment on there where some guy was like, well, I think he should be able to, just take a day off if he needs to take care of his kid. And I was just like, well, if he wanted to take a day off, he could do that. That's up to him. Point is, nobody's telling him how to live his life, He can still work. He is not disabled by his baby. The other one is tree houses. We have meeting room tree houses, so that's popular. People just want to see that. So whatever you see, wherever you go in each day, there is something interesting worth talking about. Take a picture of it, make a post, talk about what you have learned in that day. You do ultimately, though, have to get out and visit things and visit people. So there's a bunch of meetups that are really cool to go to. Obviously, Fenders is really cool, and we are at Fenders every month, and we love it. We often host that at Microsoft, which is front-end web developers. They are a very inclusive community, so definitely start coming to that. Junior Dev, which they host here, although we hosted the last one at Microsoft. That's also really cool. Good place to start. Oh, right. Right. Friends is always Wednesdays. Oh, no, it's when my office is available. It's definitely been Tuesdays sometimes, yeah. Well, yes, you're right. Actually, DevOps is definitely on Wednesdays. That is true. Anyway, don't give up hope. There are places you can go to, get out, meet friends. Yeah. Before I go to conferences, I connect to all the speakers online and say I'm coming to the conference, and then it means when I go to the conference, I don't have to just stand in a queue to meet all the famous people. They already know me, and so it's really cool. Social currency is just like you give people something, and people will give you something back. So this really famous guy came to Microsoft and gave us a keynote. It was really good, and I just thought I'm not going to have a chance to talk to him afterwards. There's going to be a massive queue of hundreds of Microsofties, and so instead I took a picture of him on the stage with all these people looking at him, which is what every speaker wants, and posted, what a great keynote he did and all of that, and would he connect? And so, of course, he's happy to connect with me because I have given him something. I have paid him in social currency. And then he connected, and then he immediately asked me for a recommendation. Can I write a recommendation about the keynote that he had done, which is smart because it's fresh in my mind. So it was easy for me to just click on that link and give him the recommendation. And then he's aware that he is now in my debt because I've given him one more thing than he's given me. And so then he sent me a pack of cards that are sort of like related to his thing, and they were really nice, beautifully illustrated cards with sort of thought for the day kind of stuff, which was really nice. And he sent it to Perth. That was in Sydney, which means he looked up what office I was in and then sent it there, which meant he went the extra mile. So that was really cool. So obviously I was now in his debt, so I needed to repay that. So I posted a picture of the cards and said how great it was that he had sent those, and blah, blah, blah. And it just goes on like that forever. But it's good to do things for people and for people to do things for you. Put good karma out there and form those relationships. Oh, those are the cards you see. Cool. So then these are just extra articles I've written on my LinkedIn profile. So if you're not connected to me, connect to me, and you can, read those articles or other articles. And I do like to process my emotions through them. So generally, what to do when they say no. I got rejected from a lot of jobs I applied for last year. But that's okay. When you write about it, it turns out everyone else got rejected from a lot of jobs last year as well. And people are happy to share that experience with you. And you learn, as long as you learn stuff and move forward, then it's all good. There we go, the end. And now I will switch it to Jodie, shall I? Yes. Yes. So, well, Hayley gave it me. Yes, who's talking? Hayley gave it me and then plugged it in. Apparently it will make it clearer.
How do I?
Ah, okay. So you're the navigator?
Cool.
Yeah, red box indicates it's recording.
Do I need the microphone or?
You're speaking, are you?
Yeah.
If you're speaking,
Big booming
put
voice.
it on you and point it towards me.
Work very well.
That's right. I was just
Beautiful. Good to go.
guys, we've only got one microphone, so can everyone hear me okay? Good. If not, just try to speak up.
Is not amplified, it's recording.
Oh, right. Is that only not realised? Okay, good to know. We've got obviously slightly different fare. We just want to give you guys some advice on resume preparation, give you a bit of insight into what's happening around the market, some interview guidance, and we've got some materials here. So if you've got any information that you want to know, we've got a website full of topics and tricks. But equally, after this or at another event on a Saturday, I can pop down and have a look at your resumes and give you some further advice as well. So now the tech market in Perth, I think the tech market globally is actually, I think it's at a very, very interesting spot. There's so much happening across industry, you know, aviation, hospitality, smart cities, not-for-profits, education, you name it. Every business, every industry is being touched by technology. And there's a lot of different types of roles emerging and coming through. And I guess the age of analogy is in, was it 10, 12 years' time? We won't know what the roles are. It's exciting. You can see a lot more people, you know, coming into the industry. I think it's fascinating and great that everyone here is looking to advance their skills. So we've seen a big shift over the last 2 years. And I think, you know, that you've got the tech economy and then you've got the rest of the WA market. And the tech market is actually moving very, very well. So these, I'm going to be honest, these adverts here are not SEEK numbers, these are our numbers. We kind of keep a record each day and each week of what's coming through. And that's only advertised roles. So we don't advertise everything we get, and there might be other firms out there doing the same. So the numbers are probably actually going to go up. And the asterisk there, that's as of today. So we've still got November and December to go. So you can probably see that we'll eclipse that number. But there's also a broad mix of roles. You know, historically it might have been a developer or a BA or a PM, etc. You're now seeing a real mix of technology skills coming into the market. It kind of aligns to where that direction is going. So some of the initiatives on the left-hand side that we're seeing across industry, there's a lot of digital transformations happening. I guess everyone probably thinks differently as to what that actually means. Using HBF as an example, they're a core client of ours. They've got about 200 million to invest into their technology transformation. But it's everything. It's the underlying platform, it's cloud, it's the customer facing sites, it's mobile apps, it's data analytics, the contact centre, and on we go, everything. So it's going to be huge for them to transform. Generally across industry, you've got platform upgrades. There's a lot of work starting to come through from data analytics projects. It might be a mining company looking at the data that comes off their asset. It might be a member-based organisation, an insurer looking at what they can do to get information to us rapidly and more efficiently. Windows rollouts. Surprisingly, you know, everyone thinks help desk support might be a role that's offshore. It's not. It's actually one of the busiest roles and in demand at the moment. I guess for you guys, there's a lot of mobile apps and system upgrades happening across industry. And again, you know, different types and scales of projects. And emerging IoT type of projects and security. So on the right-hand side are probably the developers, the skills in demand that we're seeing, which directly align to some of those. And again, it's all different levels and scales and complexity. There's a huge amount of demand for developers at different levels, which is a good sign for you guys. So I guess you're in a position now, you're going to go through a cycle, and I don't know everyone's background here and level of experience, and if you're looking now or maybe in the future, but you'll start going through a bit of a journey. And I think as Michelle was alluding to with your LinkedIn, your resume, your SEEK profile, getting that right, that's the branding and the networking that you need to start looking at. So how do you get your profiles right from a visual perspective? And then how do you start engaging at, you know, these events and networking events as well? Start getting active and getting some information out there so people can know what your goals are, what your aspirations are, start connecting. And then we move into probably what we're going to talk a little bit further about is the resume preparation, the interviews, the attending the interviews, getting feedback, learning from the interviews that you may not get. And obviously, hopefully, all of you at some point down the track will have that job that you're looking for.
Right, so when we're entering the job market, I suppose, it's probably important to start thinking about your personal brand, obviously how you're perceived in the market. So probably 3 key areas to look at: LinkedIn, obviously Michelle, you've sort of touched on that in detail, a SEEK profile, as well as attending network events. The only thing I'm going to actually touch on with regards to LinkedIn is sometimes it can be a useful tool with regards to, I suppose, a future role that you'd like to do. It can be really handy to go on, find someone that's doing your dream role, and see what sort of experience that they've had, you know, where they've come from and what sort of direction they've taken. With regards to SEEK, has anyone used the SEEK profile before? Has anyone set one up? Yeah, so SEEK's got a function to essentially go in and upload the CV. and you can sort of put in, what sort of roles you're looking for, the locations, part-time, full-time, casual. And then obviously, agencies like Robert Walters and some employers will have access to the back end of Seek. So say, for example, if we're looking for a software developer, we can go into the back end of Seek and have a look through everyone's profile. So they're all visible to us. Obviously, we can have a bit of a read through. And if we do sort of see some skills that jump out, we can download it straight away from Seek. So very handy in terms of, trying to find an entry-level role. When you're, I suppose, looking for a role, sometimes there's that feeling to try and apply for everything and anything to increase your chances. This is not the case at all. Just try and keep in mind that Perth is a small place. Everybody does know everybody to some sort of degree. So try and make your approach, I suppose, tailored with regards to the roles that you're applying for. Don't go for a spray approach and apply for a graduate role one day and then a couple of hours later a senior data scientist, because chances are you're probably not going to get that role. So I suppose just tailor your approach, make it specific, and don't apply for jobs that you're not actually genuinely interested in doing, because if you go and interview on the day, the potential employer is going to be able to see that all over you. So yeah, and then networking events. Really good idea to go to as many networking events as possible. Obviously making sure that they're relevant. I think it's important in terms of building a confidence and speaking to people. And it's as easy as just sort of starting a conversation and saying, "Hi, my name is." I used to not really like going to networking events with you. When I first started.
Events in general or with me?
No.
Just clarify.
But yeah, as time sort of went by, I sort of forced myself to go to as many as possible, and just to have those conversations, and it really helped to sort of build my confidence. And in terms of just speaking to people that are in the industry, it's going to give you some really good tips, tricks, and as well as a bit of an idea as to what's actually happening in the Perth market, just to give you some current knowledge.
This is probably one, we're doing some brochure there, and again, it's on our website if you wanted to download one of these. There's a lot of industry professionals, I think, in the tech industry that, 15 years in the industry, they've often said to me, they haven't written a resume, they get it through their friends and peers, etc. And that might be the case, but they're, established professionals. And they actually have, hard to write. I went back to study a few years ago and had to write one myself. And it took me, a couple of weeks to actually get it right. And you're actually going to be having different levels of people that you're going to be engaging with through this means as well. You might be dealing with a recruitment professional, and completely us and none others, but you'll be dealing with recruitment professionals, you'll be dealing with internal recruitment managers to varying levels of, expertise. You're dealing with HR managers and line managers, and they've all going to come from different backgrounds and different ways of reading these. So you want to actually look at it as it is a marketing tool for you. So I could go into war and peace probably about the resume issues that we've seen. Please don't make it any more than, say, 3 or 4 pages. Again, it depends on your level of expertise, but we've had 20-page resumes come across our desk.
I'm not reading that.
It's like, no, we don't, and it's just delete straight away, because if they can't get that right, then how do they actually, if they can't, well, they're not going to expect us to read it, then the client's not going to read it either. We've had some really random information put in the CVs. I'm always careful to say to people, you don't need to put hobbies in your resume unless maybe someone is a cyclist and you want to put something in the cover letter about some work that you do. But a boyfriend and a girlfriend is not a hobby, and we've seen that use their resumes as well. And just be mindful of that. So this is certainly a baseline to start with. Your personal details, you don't need to put in any marital status either. You don't necessarily need to put in your address and where you live. So be mindful of some of that information that you don't need to disclose. Start at the top with some of the educations that you've got, any qualifications, certifications that you might have. And ideally, if you can, where relevant, say for the more recent stuff that you've actually done, if it's completed or if it's in progress. Summary of skills of what you're actually after. And again, I'm not 100% sure of people's backgrounds and expertise here, but if you're moving and transitioning from what you want to do, say, into a development role, put the aspirational stuff in there. Tell a little bit of a story about why you want to transition and how you can take those transitional skills across. Again, this is an area we probably see people put some really basic information that's in the resume. So if it's not going to sell you, leave it out. If it's something that's going to help a client understand where you're coming from and why you're transitioning, include it, run it past someone and see if they can actually understand what you've put there. And then start chronologically from your most current role going backwards. And it might be, and I think this is the part here I talked about the 20-page resume. The company, the title that you've got, the years that you've actually been there, and please do put your months in there. We get some that they might go 2018 to 19. That could be 2 months, it could be 2 years. And so it's good to get a length of an idea of how long they've actually been there and what their role was within the team. Don't go into war and peace again on the responsibilities. Depending on your level of the role there, you might have 3, you might have 6, but make it pertinent. Again, this is where they run through a task list, time management, engaging with clients. They're not really responsibilities. So think about what your roles actually are. And if you've got, say, 15 that actually write down, this writing when I wrote mine, just wrote down everything that I did. And there were some that I could actually combine. And there are some that are probably going to be given that you can actually leave off. And that's time management and all that stuff. And then achievements, and this is one where actually see a lot of people miss this. Quantify what you've actually done. i.e. if you've done any project work and it's cost savings that you can share, include that in there. If you have developed something and it was a new innovation for a company, put that in there. If there's a customer and maybe the acquisition of a new client, put that in there. So they can actually see how you've contributed based on the work that you've actually done. Feed that back into your prior roles as well. So layout needs to look good, bit of space, bit of bit of between the text. Don't make it too texty, too wordy, because as soon as a person or a hiring manager opens it up, if it's hard to read, I'll just put that aside for the time being. Right, it needs to look good, visually look good. Monitor the length. Again, we've had 20 pages and people don't read them. I've had some come through that are 5 or 6, but it supports their background, CIO level, that's fine. And again, I don't know the level of your background there. Even 2 pages is fine, right? As long as it supports what you've done. Accuracy, I've actually had a spelling mistake in the last page of this, and luckily I caught it before, I actually said it today, then I found it. So accuracy, check it. Get someone to do a spell check, for you, run through it, read it, make sure it reads well. There's, again, on our site, there's some information there about what words to put in there, and you might need to, because if you start going I constantly, just think about how that's coming across to the reader as well. And I would suggest write it, leave it, come back to it, and start doing that a few times, and then even give it to someone, a friend that, or a peer if you know them, that might know your role. And please, by all means, when you've written it, if you want to, please, come and see us and talk to us, and we'll give you some guidance on that as well.
Sure. So important to think about, I suppose, your approach with regards to applications. A lot of people will just, again, jump the gun and just hit apply straight away. So I suppose it's important to be, proactive with regards to how you approach going for a job. Understand the role, understand the company, have a bit of a read through the About Us section, have a read through the ethics, the morals, where the company was started, and I suppose get a real understanding of the actual role itself. Cover letters are an interesting one, and we were discussing this afternoon. Some people are a fan of them, others not so much. I think the best way to go about a cover letter is think about an alternative cover letter. I'm a massive fan of when people call me up and introduce themselves, and they sort of use that as their cover letter, just as something sort of a little bit different from everybody else. If you are going to do one, try and keep it short and sweet, so maybe 1 paragraph, 1.5 paragraphs at most. And just basically sort of outline a very sort of straight to the point, motivation, reasons why you're going for this role. And I suppose demonstrate to them that you've taken some time to understand the role and the business and what value you bring to the company. Good idea to obviously look at potentially putting together a portfolio. Really good idea to put it on LinkedIn as well. Like Michelle sort of mentioned, if you can sort of show your physical work and really sort of demonstrate what you're capable of, it's always a good idea because it sort of shows how passionate you are about the work. So maybe pick one or two pieces that you thought you did a really good job on, and you thought that are really impressive, and sort of run through it with them. Give them a bit of an idea as to why you did this a specific way, or why you chose to sort of look at this specific project. Following up is very important as well. So if you're going to apply for a role, don't just send off the CV and then leave it for 4 weeks and ask, why did I not get a call back? Keep on sort of chasing them up. Ask for some feedback on the CV. Even if, say, for example, you might not be the best candidate for that specific role, always ask for feedback. It's important to sort of see, okay, yes, you've written this really, really well. This is probably something that isn't as relevant for a role like this, because it is definitely a learning experience. And the more you do it, the better you're going to become.
Interview prep. So there's probably a lot to cover and too much to cover in this session tonight, but there's lots of different interview styles out there, and interviewing a CEO is very different from interviewing a graduate. But in reality, an interview is not an interrogation. It's supposed to be so that the interviewer and the interviewee can get the most from each other. So if anyone is by chance a bit daunted or a bit swayed by an interview, I say please don't. You're just talking to people at the end of the day, and most companies, not all, actually do understand that. So they know that everyone is a little bit different. And in our industry, we meet a lot of different personalities and people coming through. It doesn't mean they're not good at what they can do. We just have to make them feel comfortable so we can actually get them engaging and talk to them, find out where their strengths are and how they can add value to the business and how we might be the right business for them. And again, I've seen some very, very interesting things come through on this one. But, do. So, and there's probably some basic stuff here, and I don't mean to demean anyone when we talk about them, but do your research. If you say if you are lucky enough to get an interview, and I'm sure you all will, do your research on the organisation, a little bit about the background, how long they've been in existence, what project work they might have underway, any press articles that might be on their website, and your interviewers, if you by chance look at their LinkedIn profiles, see what their role is, what their history is. You may be able to find a connection, and again, maybe one of the managers is a cyclist and you're a cyclist, you can drop that into the conversation. The age order, I guess the one in Perth is the Eagles-Dockers divide, but be mindful when you approach that one. And know your CV and your background. You know your background better than anyone. So, run through it, know your project work. But I think what we see a lot in interviews is people just regurgitate what they've actually done. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily talk about, the old STAR response there, the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So if we asked a question such as, tell me about a time when you had a particular circumstance, you can talk the interviewer through that situation, task that you did to perform that, how you went about it in terms of action and the response. And it gives them a far better indication of not only what your tasks were, but how you went about them, how you might bring that into the organisation. And that's just practice. And once you get used to that, you'll be able to deliver that information probably more confidently and comfortably in front of different types of people. But this is a big one. I've had a few people come in when they've been interviewing with us and they don't have any questions on Robert Walters. And I'm like, apart from maybe regurgitating some of the information that's on the website. And you then do start questioning, well, are they really interested? There must be something they want to know. Something, and not just the information they provide. It might be, the staff, within the business, what the culture is like, what the hours are like. There's something. So always come prepared with questions, and that might be off the back of the information that you've done and the research that you've done. Attire, again, is an interesting one. I think there's a real mixed level of attire at different organisations out there. Some are corporate, some are not. I personally think err on the side of a little bit more corporate when you are going for an interview. If we are giving candidates advice and we know the company's a little bit more informal, and we'll say to the client, look, are you okay if they turn up maybe not in a suit and tie, etc., because those days are gone, right? But just be mindful of how you do approach that. I know it sounds basic. And location, again, if wherever you live, if it's outside the CBD, just get a sense check of, the location and where they are. Is it coming by train? Is it coming by, car? Have you got parking? We often get calls where people are running late or something's happened, and it's fine as long as you've got the number, but just maybe plot it out, arrive a bit earlier, calm yourself, have a water, and then you can refresh yourself. And first impressions, look at the company, look at the website, look at who you're speaking to, and make an impression when you walk in there. Maybe it's a statement about something you've read on the website or something about an interview that you're meeting. They might immediately, say they are an Eagles fan, whatever, you say, hey, did you watch that game on the weekend? It could make a difference, right? And distinguish yourself, know your background and what you like and some of the hobbies that you might have in a good way, and tell stories about yourself and your background, how you can add value to the client. Because it's not just about the stats and data that's on your resume. That's one thing that gets you in. It's then how you sell yourself in the interview is the next one. The do nots, and I won't run through too much detail, but apathy, talking too much, being too familiar with your interviewer, not preparing and asking questions. They're all basics, but you'd be surprised probably sometimes what we see when people come in, and it's really preparation. It's all you. Employees do look for different things, and again, you're going to have highly experienced individuals that they're going to look for, all the way down to junior developers, graduate people coming through. So on the right hand side is, again, depends on the level of the role and the complexity within the role. They might look at their experience, volunteer work, as Michelle mentioned, any particular vocation work. Can they problem solve? Are they innovative? And we could probably add a few more onto that. Combined with the left-hand side, it might be volunteering again. So more about the personal interest and presentation. You want to get to know the person because they're going to be working, who knows, it could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years with that business. They need to look at the right fit. They need to look at the person that's going to come in and work with the team and then add value, but equally making sure the company's right for you as well. So the combination of those two is the employability within that business. So on the left-hand side, there's probably some stuff there that you might have done within your current role and prior roles that are transitional skills. Maybe they're not directly related to coding as it is now, but there will be transitional skills that you can talk about and use to actually discuss with the interviewer as well.
So what do employers care about? So probably the biggest one straight away is the culture and the team fit. You've got large organisations, small organisations. It doesn't really matter about the size. The important thing is, making sure that the team is on board. Looking at the team environment, the workplace environment, and I suppose what those dynamics look like, because that's going to be the difference between a team of developers that actually deliver something on time and a team that don't. Teamwork does make the dream work, as you say. And probably it's a good idea to sort of sit back beforehand and just reflect and think about the sort of culture that you would like from your employer. Not everyone gels with everyone. Some people love a really fast-paced environment, some people don't. It really comes down to what's going to be best for you and what's going to, I suppose, provide the best opportunity to develop your career in specific kinds of cultures. Skills obviously is still an important aspect. Just make sure that the skills that you're discussing in your interview or sort of when they are asking you those questions, make sure that they are relevant, like Jodie mentioned. Have a look at any news articles that are on Google. Sometimes it's good to just have a quick glance the night before, just so that if you do have any questions, you can ask something about something that might be quite relevant and current, I suppose. With regards to, I suppose, the actual interview itself, when you come to the end of it, it's really good to think about, again, the sort of team and culture that you'd fit into. So the importance of asking those questions and saying, what sort of team do you have? Is it a fast-paced environment? How do you sort of work best and what's the management style? Because that's sort of going to give you a bit more of a clearer understanding as to, what that position might look like and I suppose what you're going to be able to gain from it in the long term. And then people, it's, I suppose you've got to work with people, obviously in the workforce. People come from all kinds of different backgrounds, and I think it's becoming, I suppose, more and more of a diverse range of people and skills coming from all kinds of backgrounds. I'm working with a gent that's over in Switzerland at the moment, for example. Like, it's everyone from sort of everywhere. So I suppose with regards to that, think about the kinds of people that you may potentially be working with. how you might relate to them and the types of communication you're going to have on a daily basis. Looking for the ideal company. So when it comes to obviously finding the right company, it's not about just trying to get an opportunity and taking it because it's in front of you. Yes, the experience is definitely an important thing, but you want to try and find a company that's in line with where you want to go from a progression point of view, but also from a morals and an ethics point of view. We do have some clients that some candidates don't want to work for because just purely down to how they feel from a personal perspective. So whether it's climate change or something like that, you've got to make sure that this sort of sits right with you and it is something that you want to do, because chances are if you get into a role that you're only doing for the experience, 6 months down the track, you're really not going to enjoy it. And you'll probably want to leave, which isn't going to be ideal. So think about, what sort of company you'd want to work for, what sort of morals that they might have. Good idea actually to have a read over their website. Probably in the About Us section for almost every company is, morals, ethics, and how they conduct their business. So important, obviously, to make sure that sort of aligns to your personal goals and morals as well. In terms of training and development, I think starting off in software development or data analytics or whatever the case is, making sure that there is a clear development plan in place for people that come on in a junior capacity, because that's without a doubt the most important thing when you're first, I suppose, entering that sort of job market, is the learning and the experience of actually working in that role. So ask the question, what's the structure and how do you develop your people? Do you supply any extra training outside of this organisation? Questions like that can give you a bit of an idea as to how successful that development program might be. Flexible working arrangements. Again, it's 2019, so a lot of businesses are quite open to flexible working arrangements. I would say probably the most important thing to keep in mind is that if you are at work and you're obviously delivering value for that company, they want to do right by you as well. So if you need to work a day or two from home here and there, it's not a foreign concept for a lot of businesses these days.
I think just wrapping it all up, there's some good opportunities in the market at the moment. There's a lot of talk. We've had so many clients come to us over the last 18 months and say, do you have a female developer? Do you have a female this? Do you have a female that? Typically not supposed to ask us that, but they do. But it's a good sign because they are trying to bolster and get that diversity in there. And it's not just gender, it's actually backgrounds and cultures, because as we spoke about it, I didn't speak, at the Whitwer event, they talked a lot about the collaboration in teams where it is a diverse team. So there is a lot of momentum in this now, and I think if you get the resume right, you look at the right companies that are out there for you, there's some really interesting work starting to happen. So it's, the world's oyster, as they say. But we've got some information here. So if you ever did want to give us a call, send your resume to us, by all means do so. We're happy to have a look. If you want any information on the companies, and if you've got a target company out there, you want to give us a call, or anyone in the room, and just get their advice, do so.
Cool.
Great. Thank you to all three of our presenters. After that, we'll let Michelle get her computer back. React. You look stumped.
We get you stand up today? No, we're just going to dive straight into it. Awesome.
Getting worried about anything.
Everyone's updating on LinkedIn for me. That's okay.